Lumines Remastered is finally here. Does it play as well as the original? Let's find out. It's time for a hot take. When the PSP first came out, it was an amazing piece of hardware, and the first game I played on the system was Lumines. Lumines was really a great way to show off all the features and abilities of the PSP because, well, it's a really easy to understand puzzle game. The same way when you played the Game Boy for the first time, you likely played Tetris, it was the same idea with the PSP and Lumines. Lumines had wonderful, colorful graphics going on that looked really good on the screen, amazing controls, and a whole bunch of features and a pumping soundtrack that really worked well when you use the PSP with some good headphones, or even just using the PSP speaker itself, which, although isn't as good as the headphones, it was pretty decent to begin with. Lumines was a very important game to me on the PSP, and I was very excited when I heard about the remaster. Now, this remaster is available basically on everything. You can get it on mobile, you can get it on PS4, you can get it on Switch, you can get it about everywhere. Now, I didn't play the Switch version, although I will try it eventually, but I did play it on Xbox One. Now, specifically, I was playing it on Xbox One X, but I didn't really see any advantages when you're playing that system over the original Xbox One S or Xbox One. Basically, you're not getting 4K resolutions or anything like that. The game does run at a higher resolution though, and that's really cool. Because back when it was originally released on the PSP, well, PSP is a really cool system, has a really nice screen, didn't have the highest resolutions, though they were pretty good for its time. Now you can play the game in full 1080p at 60 frames per second, and the graphics that were so impressive on that tiny screen are just as impressive now. The visuals have been remastered and reworked to work on newer high-definition screens, and it really doesn't feel like the game was made a long time ago, it honestly feels like the game was made more recently. All the really cool animations and sound effects and all that stuff that you would have seen in the original PSP version are now here, just a lot more larger than life. And those sound effects work really well if you have a really impressive sound system or if you're just using your typical speakers on your television. Back in the old days on the PSP, those sound effects really mattered a lot while you're playing the game, but nowadays, well, if you have a really good sound system, it just really moves you. Another cool thing that they've done with this version that the PSP version didn't have is that now while you're playing the game, you can actually feel the thump and vibration of the game's music on your controller, which is really interesting. There's also some enhanced modes for vibration that can make a whole bunch of other controllers in your vicinity vibrate to the music, which I guess is useful for someone, but for me, I really didn't feel that there was a really big need for that. Unless you wanted, like, I don't know, controllers that were extra on your feet or something, so that you could feel the beat to the music on your feet. If you're into that, it's there, but I just didn't find a need for it. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, you're pretty much getting the exact same experience. All the modes that I remembered being in the PSP version were available on here, and the gameplay, with a couple tweaks here and there, pretty much stayed the same. It's just as fast, it's just as fun, and in many cases, it feels like it's a lot more responsive. Sometimes with the original PSP version, when you're switching from one skin to another, that's when you're having a transition from one level to another level, that point sometimes had some loading issues. The frame rate would drop a little bit and stuff like that would happen. But now with the Xbox version at least, that's not happening at all. Every time there's a transition, it just goes really fast. And although I did notice some really slightly weird, longer loading times than average when you were actually starting the game up for the first time, we did get some word in from the folks that developed the game that there's going to be a patch that fixes that stuff. So until that happens, just be aware that the game might take a while to start up, but once it has started up, it moves pretty quick. One thing I'm not a big fan of with the Lumines Remastered is it doesn't appear to have an online mode. Now, there is a two-player mode that you can play with another friend on the same screen, but when it comes to playing this game online, that doesn't seem to be there. And unfortunately, that's something I really would have preferred because, well, I like playing this game, and being able to play with people online would have been really fun. There's global ranking boards and stuff like that, so you do feel like you're competing with people for score, but outside of that mode there, you're not really actually competing with them directly one-on-one, side-to-side on the screen. Now, like I said earlier, this really is the exact same experience you got in the PSP with some upgrades in terms of visuals and stuff like that. But I would have liked to see some more additional features. You know, maybe some of the skins and elements from other versions of Lumines that had come out in the past. Or maybe even a couple of new extra modes that are just being thrown in for fun. Sure, we might get those things with updates, and there are some additional pieces here that were not in the original, but I would have liked to see a lot more of that. Of course, there is now a chance that we're going to see Lumines 2 remastered, but I would love to see more of a combination of everything from the portable games all in one. Until that happens though, what you have here is a really competent, really fun remaster that takes everything that was good about the original, brings it into a higher resolution and faster frame rate when it is applicable, and it makes it really fun to play. If you are a fan of the original, you gotta play this version. And if you've never played Lumines before and want to try it on a newer system, this is probably the way to go.